I am Candace from Sacred Mommyhood. I am a homeschool mom to 11 children, and today we are going to dive into the subject of how to get started in homeschooling. This video was requested by my niece who is exploring the possibility of homeschooling. She has two little ones, and I think it is so wise for her to start early in trying to decide if this is what she wants for her children. And so I will just go over the very basics. I would like to keep this short. I've got some notes, and so let's get started. So our family has been homeschooling. This is our 18th year. That's very hard to believe. I have graduated my oldest two, and I am about to graduate our third. And so it's very exciting, and it's neat to look back and just see God's faithfulness in something that I started out very fearful of doing. I am just like anyone else who thinks, oh, I can't do that. I don't have the patience. I thought all of those things. And so even in those early years when we started thinking about and considering homeschooling, I think it was my own doubts that prevented us from starting it sooner. When we first began homeschooling, I had just given birth to my third child. Our oldest daughter was in third grade, and our second oldest daughter was in fourth grade. And so my husband and I just continued to talk about it, and we were really feeling like, yes, we're going to homeschool. And so we had decided that we would let them finish off the year of school that they were currently in. And so it was before Christmas break, so they were in the first half of their school year. And by the time Christmas break came, we had just decided, you know what, why do we keep putting this off? If we're gonna do this, let's do it. And we just felt so strongly that that's what we had to do. And so that was the leap of faith. I think the hardest part of getting started is just getting started, because fear can stop us from doing a lot of things that we really wanna do. And so once we made the decision, we just pressed on, and we went through some steps, which I'll discuss here in a couple of minutes, of how we had to begin the process. But that's essentially how we got started on our homeschooling journey. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is go to hslda.org, and you are going to want to check the regulations of your state. And there's 4 different regulations, which I will show you here in a minute, but you also want to find out what those regulations entail. For instance, I live in Texas, and Texas is very low regulation, and so all I had to do was sign out my girls. I don't have to report grades to them. I don't have to keep track of certain hours, and testing is not mandatory, though we do testing on occasion. And so there are some other states that have the highest regulations, such as you have to be under some sort of umbrella school. Maybe perhaps they might choose the curriculum for you. You have to report grades, hours, mandatory testing. And so you want to go and kind of figure out where your state falls in that. And then you want to decide, okay, can I handle this? Can I do this? I know families who homeschool in the most regulated, heavily regulated states, and they do it because it's important to them. So I'd say that would be the second step, is how important is it to you for you to homeschool your children? There are many different reasons to homeschool, and you just kind of have to assess that for yourself. In addition to HSLDA, which is nationwide, I would also encourage you to look in your own state and see if you have a state organization. We live in Texas, and so ours is Texas Homeschool Coalition, and we are a member of this group. You can join in membership for HSLDA or your local state group, but both groups offer very similar services, such as homeschooling guidance, legal assistance if needed, encouragement. They even can help you with when it comes to graduation time, pretty much anything you need. So definitely look into your local state and see what your state has to offer. And here is the graphic I was telling you about. If you go to hslda.org, I will actually leave the link down below so that you can just click on it. Once you're here, you will just find your state and click on it, and it will go through all the laws and regulations that pertain to your state. And so if you'll notice those 4 colors, let's get in closer here. We see that green are states requiring no notice, such as where I live. I guess that's kind of a beige color. Those are states with low regulation. The goldish orange color are states with moderate regulation, and the red states are states with high regulation. And so you want to just go to your state, click on that, and get an idea of where your state falls, and allow this to help you in making your decision. Now I will go over different types of curriculum you can use, and a lot of it is absolutely free. So if you think that homeschooling is something that's expensive, and it certainly can be, there are curriculums that are out there that do cost a lot of money, but honestly, these 18 years of our homeschooling, we have been very frugal, and a lot of the curriculum that we use is absolutely free. And so first, before I get into these resources, I'll just go ahead and tell you, when we first started homeschooling, we didn't have a whole lot of money. And so that was one of my fears is, how are we gonna afford books and all the things that we need to homeschool? But I didn't want that to be another excuse not to homeschool. And so when we first took the girls out, remember we were in mid-year, and so we had to get started pretty quickly. So what we decided to do was actually ask the teachers if the girls could just take home any material that would otherwise be thrown out. For instance, their consumable math books, and there might have been a consumable language book. Anything that was in a workbook style that we knew would just be thrown away, we just simply asked their teachers, could we take these home with us? And that way, since we were mid-year, we could actually just continue them through the books that they were already going through. And so there were subjects where we didn't have anything to bring home, and one of them was spelling. And so how I decided to handle spelling and vocabulary was to pick a book that we were reading. So we're always reading read-alouds. And so the particular read-along we were reading at the time was Pilgrim's Progress. What I decided to do was read ahead a few chapters, and I just chose words that I knew the girls probably weren't familiar with, or maybe they were but didn't necessarily know what they meant, and those became the girls' spelling words and vocabulary words. And so I struggled along doing that for probably the rest of that year. And then eventually, slowly but surely, I was able to collect curriculum. We have a local homeschooling bookstore here where I was able to acquire little pieces, a spelling book here, a read aloud book there, just anything I needed I would kind of piece together. And the library is going to be one of your best sources, especially if you're looking to keep the cost of homeschooling low. Anything that you need, you can usually find at the library, so definitely check that out. In addition to finding resources at the library, I also kept my eye out for homeschool book swaps. There were a lot going on, and especially as the new year was ending and during the summer, there were a lot of groups of people having different homeschool book swaps. And so in my early days, that is actually how I acquired a lot of my material, and I bought it for dirt cheap because people are trying to get rid of things that they're no longer using. And so that is another great way to collect curriculum. Just keep your eye out for it. You can look online in your local area and try to find any sort of book swaps coming to your area. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the resources. And so forgive me as I will be looking down to kind of look at my notes so that I remember where I'm going next. So the first site I want to tell you about, excuse me, this is a free homeschooling online site, and it is called Easy Peasy Homeschooling. This one has been around for a while, and I know several people that actually use it and absolutely love it. They provide a 180-day lesson plan from pre-K all the way up to 8th grade. And again, I will have all of these links down in the description box. The next resource, and this is one we use all the time, especially for math, is Khan Academy. It is an incredible free resource. Essentially, they have over 4,600 online videos, and they teach all subjects. The main thing that we use Khan Academy for is for extra math help. But now, as it's grown over the years, they have added all subjects, and you can find anything you need there. And so Khan Academy is a wonderful resource for free homeschooling. Next, we have Ambleside Online. So Ambleside follows in line with the Charlotte Mason type of homeschooling. And so what that means is Charlotte Mason was a proponent of whole learning, educating the whole person in terms of reading real books, reading whole books, and there's a lot more to it. But Charlotte, the Ambleside Online offers schooling from pre-K through 12, and it is a free homeschool curriculum that uses the Charlotte Mason's classically based principles to prepare children for life of rich relationships with everything around them. And so it's a lot of reading-based education, and part of what we do in our home is very Charlotte Mason like, but I will talk about what we do here in just a few minutes. And then the last resource I have for you, now there are many, many more, but I know as a new homeschooler, it can be overwhelming to get too much information. So I'm really trying to keep this simple and straightforward and just give you what you need to get started. So the final resource, and I'm not too familiar with this one, but it is called the Puritans Homeschool, and it is consistent with the historic Reformed biblical faith as it is summarized, I lost my page, in the Westminster Standard. And so I did look it over a little bit, and it actually looks really, really good. I might explore it a little bit more and implement some of it in our homeschool. Everything on there is in PDF format. And so these are 4 great choices of online videos, printable PDFs, you name it, covering all the subjects. So if money is an issue at all, don't let that stop you. The internet is full of wealth in terms of homeschooling. When I first began homeschooling, I wouldn't say that I had any particular method or style. I didn't even know what any of those methods or styles were. All I knew was we were called to homeschool, and so we just dove in, which is probably a good thing. I'm probably glad that I didn't know all that there is to know now, because it makes it a little bit scarier trying to choose, well, what's best for my child? And so we were winging it. We were winging it when we first started, and that is okay. You can wing it and you will be just fine. And so over these 18 years, we actually have developed a preference as far as a teaching method. By no means does this mean that you watching need to do this. You choose what's best, what's simplest for your family, because honestly, we all are different moms. We have different personalities. We have different family dynamics. You may be homeschooling one child. You may be homeschooling 11 children. And so really study these different ways of teaching and the curriculum available, because I guarantee you will find one that will fit your family just fine. So I'm not sure how many years ago, a long time ago, I read this book, The Well-Trained Mind. And so The Well-Trained Mind follows the classical method of homeschooling. And people often ask me, do you classical homeschool 100%? I would say probably about 75 to 80% classical, and that doesn't even mean I follow this book to a T. I probably use about 75 to 80% of this book, and the rest is just what I've learned over the years to cater to our family needs, and that's what works well for us. And so The classical method, I don't think I'll get into that because you can check this out at your library and actually read it. You could even go online and get a very basic description of classical education, but it's very similar to Charlotte Mason style. It is a lot of whole books, a lot of real books. We've kind of moved away from too much textbooky type of work. We still do math, we still do have some textbooks, but this is a lot of reading and a lot of recitations and poem memorization and rhetoric and logic. And so those are pretty much the components: the grammar stage, the logic stage, and the rhetoric stage, and those are broken down into different grades. And so I don't want to overwhelm you by talking about it, and so if it's something that interests you, then definitely look into it. A piece of advice I would like to give to new homeschoolers is, we all have this idea in our mind of what school is. And I know that I went to public school all my life, is probably like many of you did. And so the model of school that we have in our minds is all that we know is the public school setting. And so everyone sits nicely in rows, and you have all the fun maps and things all over the walls, and you have your subjects divided into time, and the bell rings, and it's recess time. Well, when we began homeschooling, that's all I knew, and so I tried to replicate that. I had a very stringent schedule. When math time was over, which was an hour long, I actually said, okay, time to close your books. We need to move on to the next subject. And so we moved along quickly trying to cover all of our subjects. And if you're kind of geared towards more of a schedule personality, then that's okay. But my message is, don't feel like you have to replicate the traditional school system. What I have learned over these years is there's so much freedom in homeschooling. Anywhere from the curriculum we use, how we homeschool in our day, the time frames we homeschool in our day, there's just a lot of freedom. And I would just encourage you to just be relaxed. Don't worry about it. We get so much done in a short amount of time that we don't need the 8 or 9 hours to homeschool our kids. And so in our home, and I will be putting out a day in the life video soon that will show kind of our day of homeschooling, but at our homeschooling, kids are spread out all over the place. They're on the couch at the 2 tables that we have. And so it's just a very comfortable setting for learning. And I think it's important to remember that learning is happening all day in your home. And we have been so conditioned to think that learning only happens in a classroom or maybe online if you're taking an online class. But learning, especially for kids, is happening all the time. Whether it's actually sitting at the table and cracking open a math book, or they're in the kitchen baking up a storm and learning all their measurements, or they're outside exploring and learning all the wonderful things that God has provided in nature. And so that would be my encouragement. Just let it be a relaxing adventure for you, and know that there is no right way to do it. It's what's right for your family is how it's going to flow best in your homeschool day. And so I guess to close this out, I would just say if you decide that homeschooling is for you, just start. Just do it. Find out your laws in your state. Make the assessment. Okay, is this too much? Can I do this? Does this fit within our family dynamics? And just make the leap. You will not regret it. When we first started homeschooling, we decided, okay, let's just take it 1 year at a time. Because I was definitely the mom who said, I don't have the patience to homeschool my children. That's probably the common misconception, is that we are loaded with patience, and that is not true. We don't have the patience, but by God's grace, He grows us in that as excuse me, as we are working with our children. And it actually becomes easier because we're not fighting against a system in terms of helping kids with homework. And if you're anywhere near my age, you know that a lot of terminology has changed, especially in math, and that can create a source of frustration between a parent and a child. So just tell yourself, let's just take it 1 year at a time and then go from there. Assess over the summer, unless you decide to school year-round, which we actually homeschool year-round. But in those beginning years, we just decided to take it 1 year at a time. And then I think probably by about the fourth year, we thought, well, we're just gonna homeschool forever. So it didn't take long for us to be 100% on board with it. And as I got used to homeschooling, even though my family was growing, I started out with 3 kids. One was a newborn, and then we ended up having 11 kids. And so as family members are added, it definitely changes things. But even through that, through nursing, through pregnancy, where I was terribly sick, homeschooling got easier. And it got easier because I was learning how much freedom there is in homeschooling. I was really enjoying the time that I had with my children, and I was learning myself. That's probably my favorite part of homeschooling. I have learned so much through teaching my kids, and that is just such a tremendous blessing. I also want to share here that while homeschooling has been one of my greatest joys, and I absolutely love it, to be sure there will be hard days as well. And so just like in life, we have rough days. And so you might have a day where you're butting heads with your child, or they are just not getting that long division or subtraction problem. It can be frustrating. So I just want you to be prepared for that. You can definitely have some difficult days, but it's okay. It's okay to have difficult days. And the beauty of it is you work through those days. You work through the personality differences. You work through the days where it seems like you're not getting anything done because you're having to change the baby 100 times or nurse the baby, or the phone keeps ringing, or just all those things. Just anything that you can imagine that happens in our normal days. And sometimes we feel like, we just can't get through a homeschooling day. But remember the time. Remember that while everyone else is sitting at school for about 8 or 9 hours, you are getting things done much faster. And so I just want to share the faithfulness of that, because I am a mom who homeschooled most of these homeschooling years through really severe morning sickness, always nursing a baby, having a baby on my lap. My youngest is now 3, so I'm sadly growing out of the baby stage now. But I just wanted to say that God truly is faithful. And just to give you some examples of all those years where some years that just felt like, we didn't get enough done, or we fell behind. And I'll just say right there that behind is just something we come up with on our own. You know your child best, and you want to take the time to allow your child the freedom to learn at their pace. And so just throw out that concept of behind. But my oldest daughter ended up going into dual credit at college at 16. And I remember being very nervous, thinking, did I teach her enough? And, is she going to be able to keep up? And not only did she keep up at 16 while her peers had graduated high school and were 18 and above, she often had her papers used as examples on proper writing. And so if that's not encouragement when you've had all these doubts over the years, I don't know what is. My second oldest daughter also got into a difficult classical Christian school, Christian university, and did very well there. And my son was just accepted to College of the Ozarks. And so I look back at a lot of those years and think, maybe we didn't do so great that year, or maybe we didn't get enough done that year. And then to actually see that, no, they're just fine. That is God's faithfulness. That is the Lord filling those gaps for us, giving us those little bits of encouragement. Well, all my kids go to college. Probably not, and we actually don't insist that our children do go to college. It just so happens the older two did, and our third is going, but we are happy with whatever God calls our kids to do, and that does not always mean college. And so I just wanted to share that just to give some encouragement that even when times are tough, your kids are always learning. I hope this video has been helpful. I apologize for all of my rambling. I was trying to stick to my notes, but I know I probably got off track a little bit. But if you have any questions, please leave me a comment in the comment section. I would love to talk with you and answer any questions that you have. And I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Have a great day. Bye-bye.